Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Mastermind this afternoon on business operations, brought to you by My Main Street, a great program for small businesses across Ontario to help us grow our businesses. My name is Andrew Patricio, and I've always been a business owner. But for the last 25 years, I've been educating, training, trying to inspire business owners, and at the same time, trying to grow my business. So I can relate to some of the challenges, some of the insecurities you go through, some of the really difficult times I think we've gone through the last 2 or 3 years. And especially I find the last 6 months, because I think a lot of people like me are eternal optimists. We always think that things are going to get better. So in my case, I was expecting after the crisis for us to have a bit of a break, maybe to regrow our businesses. And now we've got this new challenge that we're facing all these obstacles that we haven't faced for many years. So how do we deal with it? How do you and I as business owners deal with it? As managers of our businesses or owners of our business, how do we deal with it? So when we speak about operations, what are we speaking about? What I find very, very often in business, different people have different definitions for different things. And often we confuse ourselves. That's what we do. We confuse ourselves. And even I often get confused. So as I was thinking about this mastermind, what we were going to discuss this mastermind, I was even thinking, when somebody says operations, what are they talking about? So when I speak about operations, I'm speaking about everything that happens in your business to keep it running and to generate revenue, because that's really the key. And this is why it is so important now, because now that we've had challenges with things like inflation, with our interest rates going up, with the price of real estate coming down, with the stock market, also not doing so well, all of these challenges at once. And a lot of these will have direct impact on our business. The rise in the interest rates, the inflation, which is really got out of hand. It seems like it's a little bit under control. I get that feeling. And maybe I'm wrong, but I get that feeling that all of a sudden, the inflation has peaked. I think it's got to its highest point, and I don't think it's going to come down a lot very quickly, but at least I think we can see now what we faced with and how we're going to deal with it. So as business owners, we got to make sure that we run an efficient business. That's really what it's about, is making sure we get efficiencies in our business. Because if you do that, even if your revenue comes down or if your expenses go up, you can make profit. Because I think that once your business is operating efficiently, you'll make more profit. And I find that often what happens, and when I think back, for example, over the last 3 or 4 years, so before COVID, we were going through this massive growth. Our economy is growing, the interest rates were low, we could borrow money very, very cheaply. This is a different stage we're going through now. So this is why it's very, very important that if we want to make more profit now, what we've got to try to do is reduce our costs. That is one of our key objectives, is to now try and reduce our costs and try and ensure that our business can run well with or without us. And this is a really, really important thing, because every now and then I will meet business owners and they'll say things like, well, if I'm not here, things don't operate well and things like that. And this is one of the biggest challenges as a business owner, is that your business sometimes relies too much on you. And if your business relies too much on you, it could be something that holds you back from growing and scaling your business. So if you can get the operations right, it helps this growth. And what I think one of the easiest ways to do this is to think of the way your business runs, I'm moving my hand like this because I'm visualizing a whiteboard, and on there, I put the process of how things happen in our business. And then what you want to try and do is you want to try and identify what are the bottlenecks, what are the challenges, what are the struggles that you're going through as a business owner. But just before I carry on, there's a good question here from Crystal, and I encourage you to ask questions. This is your opportunity to ask questions. Crystal says, in order to support additional growth, I need to add more employees. It has been a challenge for me thus far. How do I find more staff that are knowledgeable, capable, and able to think creatively with the budget of a small business? And that is a challenge that every single one of us, Crystal, go through. And I think this is not a simple problem to solve, but I'm going to give you an example. I don't want to add just anybody to as role, as this tends to cause more problems for me in the long run. So these are my thoughts. And this comes from experience in the franchise industry. One of the things that they do in the franchise industry is they realize that if they get the most qualified people, those people are often expensive. So because these people are expensive, it'll have an impact on their bottom line, their profitability. So what they do in the franchise industry is they get junior people and they train them up. And I think that is one of your opportunities here, is take your best employee. That's what I would encourage you to do, is to take your best employee and write down exactly what makes this person the best employee. You know, is it their attitude? Is it their work ethic? Is whatever it is, you want to write this down. And then once you write this down, what you want to do is you want to create a really good interview process, because you want to try and identify these things that you've identified some of your best employees have, or your best employee has, and you want to almost like replicate that person. So that is what you want to be doing. And I used this example a few years ago. I just thought about it now. One of my clients runs their business remotely, a large business. They started off as a business of 2 people, and now they employ over 300 people. And they used exactly this model. So one of the exercises I did with them, I said to them, who are your best managers? Anyway, so, and I asked the staff, I didn't ask the owners, I asked the staff, I said, who are the best managers? And they told me this couple, and I met this couple. And it was really interesting. They had a few things about them. They were motivated, they were outgoing and had great personalities. They had a good work ethic, all of those type of things. Then I said to them, well, let us take all those traits or all those things that make these people great managers, and let's create a profile of that. And then let's create questions around that. So there are 2 things here for you, Crystal. One that you can learn from the franchise industry is we take average people and we train them up to become really good at what they do. Or the other one is trying to identify somebody that's already working in your business that does the job really well, and trying to identify what makes this person so good. And this is a process. This is just not going to happen overnight. But what happens often in small business is that we employ people based on price. And that's okay as long as they've got the potential. But if you employ somebody based on price without the potential, you've got a problem. And we've had this even in my business. In my business, we're a small business just like you. We're always looking for good writers. We're looking for good content developers. And my strategy all along has always been to find good people and teach them how to become great presenters in my case. Find good people that know how to write and make them great writers. So that is the strategy I would use, Crystal, is to try and come up with profiles. It's a process. And I also believe in the case of small business the interview process is the most important thing. If you ask the right questions, if you can identify, what are the strengths this person has, I think that is key. So Tracy says, I'm all out of magic beans. Hopefully I'll use some new ideas I can apply for efficiency. Works for me. I can't see other people's questions in the Q&A though. Don't worry, I'll answer those questions. Okay, so I've gone through your question of that. So you can now post in the chat if you like, and I will see those questions. Actually, I think it's better to post in the chat as you go along. So hopefully that's answered your question, Crystal. A very difficult question, but a very, very common one that we face as small business owners. And more small business owners are speaking about this. On the other hand, yes, the other thing that I was thinking about about employees is also don't discount older employees. So maybe one of your challenges is, maybe you can get somebody that's retired. Maybe you can get somebody that's semi-retired. Maybe you can get somebody that wants to work part-time. So these are the type of things you want to be doing, Crystal. And the other thing you want to think about, which is, I think, also important, is that when you employ people, always assume that they're probably not going to be with you for a long time. Always assume that. So what you want to do is, like in our case, I'll give you an example. So in our business, what happens is, and we've had really, really good people working for me. I must be honest, very, very good people. And I think the reason we've had good people is because we go through the recruitment process. For me, recruitment is really key, asking the right questions, interviewing people, all those type of things, and then training them up. But I know very often, especially my content developers, that usually the ad agencies take them. They offer them much more money than I'm prepared to pay them. And I'm okay with that, because very often they'll come to me and they'll say to me, Andrew, I've got this really big offer. What should I do? And I always say the same thing. If I was you, I would take that big offer. But what I do with my employees, I always say to them when I employ them is, the day you decide to leave, I want to be the first person to know. So not anybody else. I want to be the first person to know. You come to me, you tell me that you're going to leave. And if somebody wants to leave, I allow them to leave. I don't ask employees to stay. Maybe I might ask them to stay an extra month or two, but I don't ask them to stay, because if they've decided that this is not the right place to work, I prefer I replace them. And then what I do is I use this person that's leaving to help train up the new person. So maybe that's another strategy you could use, Crystal, but it's something you got to solve. I promise you, it is something you got to solve. It's a big challenge for businesses. I mean, go into any library or any bookstore and see how many books are written on HR, and you'll realize that this is a big challenge. It's a big challenge for big businesses, but it's even a bigger challenge for small businesses. The other thing that I was thinking about as I was saying this, Richard Branson used to always say this, has this quote. He says, train your employees up really, really well. And they may leave you. But the reality is that if you don't train them, they may stay, and that makes a bigger problem for you. So I think a lot of improving productivity, of improving morale, of improving your employees is about training them up. So let's just go through some of the keys to success when it comes to operations, or some of the things that we want to try and do. Is, I believe, with any business, whether it's your business, my business, any business out there, there's always a better way to do things. And that is exactly what you want to be doing. So whether it's employing new people, whether it's improving the way you bake your bread, whether it's improving the way you do a photo shoot or a video shoot, or whatever your business is, whatever you are doing, as a business owner, you always want to assume there's a better way. And when I say there's a better way, what you want to try and do is you want to become more cost efficient. And these are some of the things that we can work on. These are like, work in progress. These are things that take time, but it's really an exercise that we need to be doing on a regular basis, is looking at our business and saying, am I being efficient in the way I create this product, or in the way I sell the service, or in the way let's say you retail, the way you merchandise, the way you're shipping. Those are the type of things you want to think about. And I think give you a simple example is, for example, when it comes to e-commerce business, one of the things I always say to anybody that's doing any form of e-commerce is, one of the things you got to look at, and maybe even get one of your employees to do, is to look at how are we shipping our products. And one of the things you want to look at is, when we ship products, are we doing the best or the most efficient way of doing things? I'll give you an example, a silly example, but a really important one. My son runs an e-commerce business, and all along we've had this shipping fee. So we've had the shipping fee up to £1. You pay $8, whatever it was. And it's really interesting that over £1 you pay like more than under £1, and quite a big difference, like 30 or 40%. And only one day we were discussing with one of our suppliers, and she said, if you reduce the size of your packaging, you will halve the price of your shipping. And I remember saying to her, why did nobody ever tell us that? And that is exactly what you want to be doing. As a business owner, you want to try and identify, is there anything you can do? For example, when it comes to your shipping, when it comes to your manufacturing, when it comes to, those are the type of things you want to focus on. Is there an opportunity to reduce the cost? The next one is process. What happens sometimes in business is we do things like we've always done them. We do things like we've always done them, and we keep doing it over and over again until you get some random person from the outside coming into your business and saying, you know what, I think there's a better way of doing this. And a friend of mine that runs he does experiential marketing. When you see these big displays in retail stores, or, when you're going downtown and they have these giveaways and things like that, his business is involved in that. And I find it very, very interesting when he has discussions with me about different things that he does. He's now working on these bicycles, so where they can drive around different cities and give away ice creams and things like that. And I was having the discussion with him, and he speaks about how, if you get the process of manufacturing right, you can save a lot of money. And I encourage all of you to do this. If you're a retail business, for example, what you want to do is you want to watch the way your employees are doing things. I'll give you a very simple example. Merchandising. Merchandising involves going to the storage area, going to your shelf, seeing what's missing, going to the storage area, picking up the item and bringing it out and putting it on the shelf. Now, if you watch your employees, they may be making 4 or 5 trips a day to the storage area instead of being more efficient and creating a better process and maybe doing, 1 drop a day or whatever it is, or replenishing inventory at 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, whatever it is. These are the type of things you want to be doing. And it's simple little things that solve problems. Or for example, I was speaking to a friend of mine over the weekend, and he's involved in the transport business. And he was saying to me that, when they check their trucks, so before you go on a trip, you want to be going through, do a check of the truck to make sure the brakes are good and all this type of stuff. And he said, that they used to take a half an hour to do this. And then he decided, maybe there's a better way. And he came up with a system, a very, very simple system that saved them 15 minutes and improved the way they check their trucks. And just by changing the process, it saved them $1 million a year. And it just shows you how, as business owners, we can become more efficient. The next one, which is very, very close to my heart, is time efficiency. Because yes, the one thing that I've realized is that very, very often as business owners, we don't get things done. And the reason we don't get things done is we've always got excuses. I saw this great thing on Facebook the other day where somebody shared, if I just had a week at home without anything going on, I would have a neat household. And then she says at the end, she says, oh, we had that during COVID and my house is still a mess. It's that concept that when we have time, we don't always use it efficiently. And as a business owner, this is a challenge because our time is our own. That's the problem. So what we need to learn to do very, very quickly is to make sure that we allocate time for the things that are relevant for our business. And we mentioned this at the last webinar that I hosted, where I spoke about, planning your day and planning your week and planning your year, because these are the type of things you can do to improve. And sometimes, for example, I was speaking to a chocolate maker the other day, and we were discussing the way she makes chocolates. And she said one of her challenges, so she's got a small little chocolate store on a main street, one of her challenges was production. And I said to her, first of all, what takes the most time? And she explained to me the mixing and this and that and that. And then I said to her, what do you do currently that takes you time that you don't like doing? She said, I don't like washing the molds and this and that and that. Then I said to her, so how much does it cost to solve these two problems? For example, to increase the production, how much will that machine cost? To make sure that the molds are washed properly, how much will that cost? And it was really interesting because as we went through this exercise, we realized with a smaller investment, and maybe not that small for her, but an investment of $5,000, she could triple her capacity. And these are the type of things you want to learn as a business owner, especially in these very, very difficult times that we're going through, is you want to try and work out, how do I improve what I'm doing? Because if I can improve my production process, I don't need so many people. And if I don't need so many people, I will save on my salary bill. Or, you want to go through that process of working these things out. I mean, you've seen, for example, and all of us have seen this, is the change from, going to a cashier at a supermarket to all of a sudden doing a self-checkout. And it's really interesting because this started off really slowly, and now it seems to be getting traction. I went to a Shoppers Drug Mart the other day, and I see there's no cashiers anymore. Everything is self-checkout. But you realize that, I don't know, I mean, to me, those machines look expensive, but obviously they've realized that having somebody standing there all day waiting for customers to come in hasn't worked for them. And I'm not saying you must put in self-checkouts in your business. What I'm saying is you need to look at this process now. Now's the time to look at these things and try and identify where we can become more efficient. So let's think of areas of efficiency. Where are the places in our business where we can become more efficient, where we can save some money, where we can become more productive, where we can use less labor? Those are the type of things we want to try and work out. And I understand that every single one of us will probably have different solutions. and I'm okay with that. So if you've got a unique business or a unique challenge, feel free to post it in the chat and we'll discuss it. But one of the first things you want to look at is your workflow. So when you are working on a project, or when you are making something, or if you're a retail business, the way you do things are really, really important. And as a business owner, you want to try and identify, is there a better way of doing this? Because if you can improve, the time it takes to, for example, make a donut, or the time it takes to, I'll give you an example. With us, when we do video, one of the biggest challenges we have when we're doing video is rendering videos, because they take a long time. I don't understand it, but I know it takes a long time. So we were working on a big project where we were creating an 8-hour learning course. And my video guy, I said, what are the things that we do that we can speed up? And then we went through the whole process of how we create learning content. And one of the things I identified when we went through this was that rendering video took a long time. So how did we solve that problem? Well, we built a computer. That's how we solved it. We built a really fast computer, and it didn't cost me a lot of money compared to the project. I mean, the project was big, and relative to the amount that we earned on the project, this was a small investment. But what happened was it improved the whole process. So everything we did improved and became much faster. So we could deliver on time. Because we could deliver on time, we could then, do work on more projects. So those are the type of things you want to identify. The next one is labor. I think this is a big challenge. I really think this is a big challenge. And I think this is a challenge that's not going to go away. Before the crisis, I was saying that, if I was an employee and I was looking at working for a large company or a small company, I'd probably rather go and work for a large company. Why? For my ego, for the benefits I get, all of those things. So that was the issue that we were discussing before the crisis. And now you can see it wherever you go. I see it on a daily basis. There just are not enough people to work. I see it in restaurants. I see it in fast food places. I see it in supermarkets. I see it in drugstores. I mean, even some of our hospitals are struggling. So one of the things we want to try and do as business owners is to make our employees far more efficient. And the best way to make your employees far more efficient, in my opinion, is to train them better. That's what you want to be doing, is you want to train them better. And so you want to try and basically, you want to take this knowledge that you have and you want to replicate. Now, I've seen this many times. I mean, I was recently on a trip through California, and every now and then I'd stop at a coffee shop and, you'd get to the cash and there was a new cashier there. I can think of one example specifically in Santa Barbara. And we walked into this coffee shop and it was a little bit frustrating. And the reason it was frustrating is we got to the cash desk and this person that was at the cash desk didn't know how to work the cash. So she had to call somebody. And then once she called somebody, they had to come and they had to show her, and she wasn't. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's not the employee's fault. It is a training issue. And you've got to be very, very careful of it, is that sometimes the employees that you're employing are not well trained. And because they're not well trained, this creates a problem. Another issue that I've been thinking about, actually these last few days, and I mentioned it over the weekend, I don't know if you know anybody, but as you were growing up, there were certain people would say, this person is lazy, or that person is lazy, or that person is lazy. And I always found that very, very interesting. And I was reflecting on it last week, and I thought to myself, you know what? I don't believe that many people are lazy. I think what happens is they are not doing something that is of interest to them. So even with your employees, one of the things you want to try and identify is what are their strengths. So every single one of your people, everybody that works for you, or even yourself, you want to try and identify, what are your strengths? And those are the things you want to focus on. So if you like marketing, that's what you should spend your time doing. If you like customer service, that's what you should be spending your time doing. And I think when it comes to our employees, we want to do the same thing. The third thing that we can work on to improve our efficiency is processes. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here to do this. I mean, I'll give you a very, very simple example. If you run a bakery and you've got certain recipes that you use to make on a daily basis, you can either expect your employees to memorize them, or you can use a more efficient way and actually write the process down. And once you write the process down, two things happen. Is you learn how to simplify the process. And secondly, you learn how to make sure that the process is done the same way every single time. And as a business owner, that's one of the things you want to do, is you want to make sure that processes are efficient. They are simple and they are efficient. The next opportunity for you as a business owner is procurement. And I mean, this may be obvious, but every single one of us now have no option but to look at every single one of our suppliers. Look at every single one of our suppliers and see if we're getting value for money. Because I don't know if anybody read in the media recently, but they've been saying that supermarkets have taken advantage of inflation and are making much higher profits. Why? Because nobody says anything. When nobody says anything, what happens is we just do what we do. And this could be happening in your industry too. Some of your suppliers are maybe using inflation as an excuse to increase their prices. And this is why it's really important that you and I go through our prices that we pay for different products and services that we buy and evaluate, am I getting value for money? I know I did that exercise last year when it came to my insurance, and I was shocked at the difference I paid for insurance. And it was a simple exercise. I just decided, take each expense on our income statement, go through it and see if I can get a better deal. So these are the type of things we should be doing now as business owners and ongoing because it's a way of doing things. The other thing is shipping. I don't know if anybody has been reading the news this week, but a lot of the shipping companies are making more profit, which I find very, very interesting that all of a sudden shipping companies are making more profit. And if you're a e-commerce business, or even if you're an offline business, there are lots of opportunities nowadays, tools you can use. For example, if you got a Shopify store, in the back end of your Shopify store, there are apps that can work out the best shipping for you, the best price you pay. So these are some of the opportunities that you need to be looking at as a business owner. Or the other example, one of the things that I think about on a regular basis is, small business owners using companies like Uber Eats and things like that. I mean, have you ever gone through it? If you use those services in your business, have you ever gone through it and analyzed it and worked out if using these shipping services that you're using to ship your products or to sell products to customers, if they're an efficient way of distributing it? And if so, what is the impact on your profitability? Because that is always my fear, is that we get all excited in our businesses about these services, but we don't calculate the impact that it has on our profitability. And I've seen this many times, and I see it on my main streets just down the road from me. A lot of small business owners, businesses have closed over the last 6 months, 8 months. And I believe a lot of it's got to do with not understanding if their business is profitable. So just be very, very careful of taking on services or adding on things that generate more revenue for your business, but make less profit for you. Because if you don't calculate it, it could have an impact. The next one is technology. That's why I like programs like My Main Street. They give you the opportunity to get an investment in your business, which you can invest in things like technology, which can make you far more efficient. I mean, I'm thinking of, point of sale systems. I'm thinking of, having an online presence. I'm thinking of a whole lot of things that every one of us could be doing in our businesses that would make us more efficient, would make us better business owners, and would probably improve our profitability. So technology is always a good thing to do. If anybody's got any questions, remember, just post them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I will try and address your questions as we go through the session, okay? Because I really want you to benefit from this. I mean, obviously, I'm sharing a bit of my knowledge and my experience, but really I prefer to answer your questions or some unique challenges that you're having in your business. The next one is your corporate structure. Little things that we need to think about as business owners. For example, if you are operating as a sole proprietor, and maybe this is something you should be discussing with your accountants, is maybe you should be incorporating, or maybe you should be separating different sectors of your business, all those type of things. And these things can be very, very effective. Let's go back to if you're operating as a sole proprietor and all of a sudden you speak to your accountant and you decide you're going to incorporate. The benefits are mainly is the tax advantages you have. The tax rates for corporations are much lower than sole proprietors. And if your business is growing, or if you are investing in new equipment, or if you have accounts receivable, which most of you won't have, or if you're increasing your inventory, this is an opportunity to save on the taxes you make. And the advantage of saving on your taxes, because you've incorporated, is that it generates more cash flow for you to grow your business. And that is something that every one of us desperately need now. We really need to get the cash flowing through our business. So one of the opportunities for us are to structure our business so that we get the cash flowing through our business. So these are some of the things you can do. So think about those things. Is it workflow? Is it improving the productivity of my employees? Is it processes that I can do? Is it where we're purchasing our products or services from currently? Is it shipping both in and out that we're using? Is it technology that we need to upgrade? Or is it the structure of your business? All of these things could have an impact on how efficient your business operates. So as a business owner, only you can decide this, which I think is a really important thing. Maybe with a bit of advice from a consultant, or from your small business development center, sit down with an advisor and discuss, what can I do, especially if your business has got the potential. My biggest fear over the next few months, and I've seen it on my main street down the road, is the amount of small businesses that have been in business for years, survived COVID, came through this really difficult time during this pandemic, and now are closing down. That is my biggest nightmare. And it's often because it's almost like this sense of relief. We've got through that really difficult time. I think we've still got another 2 or 3 years of really difficult time. And as a business owner, we've got to prepare ourselves for that. We really have to prepare ourselves for this difficult future that's coming. And let's look at the other scenario. Let's say I'm wrong. Let's say I'm totally wrong. Things are not as bad. Well, the advantage is you can have a better business that's going to be more profitable. And that's the way I want you to think about it, is there's no negatives out of improving your efficiency in your business. I can't think of any negatives, but I can think of a whole lot of positives that, if you improve the way you're doing things in your business. The other thing you want to do, and this is the opportunity for you as a business owner, is to sit down with your accountant and look at your income statement. Look at your income statement and actually look at all your financial statements. Let's be honest. Let's look at, you paid for your accountant to produce financial statements for you at the end of your financial year. Maybe it's a good time to look at your financial statement. And for those of you that use accounting software, if you've got monthly management accounts, this could be your opportunity. This could be opportunity to save the 1%, 2%, or 3%. One of the first things you want to do is you want to benchmark your income statement. What does that mean? Because, when I use big words like benchmark, it sounds like, wow, this is really fancy, something that's hard to do. And it's not hard to do at all. What you want to do is you want to look at every expense on your business, and you want to look at it as a percentage of your revenue. So let's use an example. Let's say my business does a revenue of $100,000 a year, and my labor is $10,000 a year. The ratio or the benchmark is 10%. So I take 10,000 divided by my revenue, and it'll give me a ratio. So you can measure that for every single expense in your business. Okay, so you can do that. And once you've measured it for every single expense in your business, there are a couple of things you can do. Firstly, you can do comparisons month to month. So every month you can look at your management accounts and say, wow, let's look at a few ratios. Let's look at the cost of sales. Let's look at labor as a portion of our revenue. Let's look at advertising and marketing as a portion of our revenue. All of these things are things that you can measure. Your accountant, and some of you can do this yourself, but I recommend you get advice from your accountant or your small business center, is what you want to do is you want to measure your expenses as a percentage of your revenue, and then you want to compare it to industry averages. Because often your accountant has the capacity to do this. How does she do this? Well, if she does the books for 5 different restaurants, she can then compare the ratios with 5 different restaurants. You see what I'm saying? So the idea here is to sit down with your accountant and discuss this. I had a very interesting example, a client I work with, and they operated 10 different, what will we call them, bases? So 10 different business units, maybe that's the word. So they started off as a 2-person business, and then eventually grew this, and they had these 10 different little business units. And what we decided to do, or I decided to do for them, was to take every one of their income statements, so that document that your accountant produces for you every year, or for those of you who use accounting software, your accounting system can produce it for you now. You can go in, just touch a button, and it'll print an income statement. So what I decided to do is I decided to put all of these income statements on a spreadsheet. So the same thing your accountant would do. Instead of doing it with your 10 different business units, because maybe you don't have 10 different business units, but it would make comparisons to other business. And straight away, you can identify, by just looking at this, you can identify differences. And that is exactly what we did, is we went through every income statement, and I asked the managers, I let them look at it, and I said, where do you see big differences? And one business unit I remember very clearly was the cost of sales. So in other words, the ingredients that they used to make what they did. If you're an e-commerce business, the cost of your product and your shipping, say, depending on what you want to put in for cost of sales. If you're a bakery, the cost of manufacturing your product, you would make comparisons to to different businesses, and you could determine very, very quickly what the problem was. So this is a really important thing. The other thing I recommend all of you do now is go out there and see what your competitors are charging for similar products. I had this discussion earlier on with one of my clients, and it was, we were talking about, and we in the service business, And I was saying, what's changed in our industry is before COVID, people come to me and they'd say to me, Andrew, how much would you charge for this? Now we've changed the model where I go to the client and I say, actually, you tell me how much you want to spend and we will tell you what we can do for you, which has changed the model. And the reason it's changed is because everything we do in our business has become more expensive. So the model we were using before just doesn't make sense. So these are some of the type of things you want to be looking at with your accountant, and they can help you with this. The other thing you want to do, and we discussed this if you attended the webinar on systems and processes, one of my favorite topics is, looking at how do we improve efficiencies in our business. And one of the best ways is to standardize things. Little things like, for example, checklists. I know we do it regularly. We do, when we do video shoots, when we record content, one of my best ways to ensure that we are efficient is to have a checklist. Things like what stuff we need to take with us, what's the process going to be, what questions we need to ask in advance. All of these type of things, I want you to understand the value of this. I really want you to understand the value. If we go back, for example, to that example that I was discussing earlier on when Crystal spoke about struggling finding good employees, here's the reality is that what you can do, you can take an ordinary employee and make them far more effective and far more efficient. And the way you do this is by giving them systems, by giving them processes. When you load a truck, this is the way you load it. When you clean the office, this is the way you clean it. So you write down the instructions so it makes it so much easier. So these are little things that make us more efficient. They make the operations of our business more efficient. And because the operations of our business are more efficient, we become better business owners. The other one is custom forms. When customers come into our business, or if they want to buy our product or service, we ask them the same questions. If we're web designers, what do we ask them? If we, stages, if we selling plumbing equipment, doesn't matter what we are doing, is we want to have standardized forms that we use. So we ask questions and we ask the same questions and we get the same information. So we customize these things so that things that are done over and over again become better. And this is the type of thing we want to do to improve our operations. We want to use step-by-step instructions. We want to make sure that every single employee that does our merchandising does it the same way. We want to make sure that every single employee, before they ship out any product, they go through these instructions to ensure that they put the packaging label on, that they put the little note in the package. All of these things, we don't leave things to chance. And this is one of the ways we can take average employees and make them far more productive. And it also makes our business a much better run business. Our filing system, I'm quite obsessive about this because I realize that one of the things that wastes time is looking for things. A customer comes into the store and you don't have your price lists in the same place. Or one of your employees don't know where to find the rolls for your credit card machine or something. How many times have you been into businesses and you think to yourself, if they just came up with a little system, all the rolls are in this cupboard, all the Z readings are in that cupboard, whatever it is, it's creating systems. Or when it comes to your bank statements, or your credit card statements, all of these things, or any software that automates your processes. I mean, that could be a big opportunity for a lot of small business owners now, is implementing point of sale systems or more efficient systems to make their businesses run, maybe a CRM system or something like that. Pre-approved vendor lists is another example that makes you more efficient. Price lists are when customers come, you've got these things. Written policies, or that example earlier on that Crystal asked us about employees, creating clear job descriptions so that we know exactly what the person needs to do. We know exactly what skills they require, and we create a proper recruiting process for this. Sometimes it's these simple things that we do as business owners. You know, maybe setting up financial and, budget templates, all of these things. But here's the thing I want you to understand, which I think is very, very important. If we're going to survive in business over the next 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, I don't know how long are we're gonna go through this bit of crisis that we're going through, is we've got to become more efficient. We got to make sure that our workflow is more efficient. We got to ensure that our employees and our labor are working at their maximum, that they're productive, they enjoy what they're doing what our customers want, and they enjoy coming to work every day. These are the type of things we need to focus on. We need to focus on our processes to ensure that what we're doing is done properly. And we start with the simple things, and then we move on. We got to look at our procurement and see, is there an opportunity to renegotiate with our suppliers maybe, so that we get maybe better suppliers, or maybe more reasonably priced suppliers, or change our procurement process. All of these things are things that could be done and need to be done now. Our shipping, whether it's outbound shipping or inbound shipping, is there a way to do this more efficiently and maybe get more value for money? Is there a way maybe for us to use technology to make us more efficient? Should we change our business structure? All of these things are opportunities. So what I'm encouraging you to do as a business owner is that I believe the next few years are going to be tough for small business. And because they're going to be tough, we got to make sure that we become more efficient, that we run our business much better, that our operations are working really well. And I believe that if we do this, we will survive these next few years and thrive thereafter. But this is your opportunity, or, in programs like My Main Street that are available to you. These are the type of things you want to look at, is what do I do with a program like this so that I can improve my business? And if I improve my business, I will make more profit. And ultimately, that is why these programs are brought out. You create a more effective business, you become a more profitable business, and you create more jobs. And that is my wish for every single one of you, that you use this time at these webinars and these masterminds as an opportunity to improve the way you run your business, because that's the way we grow. And that is my wish for every single one of you, that you take this information, you use it effectively in your business, and you build a business that you absolutely love, that your employees love working in, your customers like buying from, and you feel, you know what, this is the business I want to build. And this is the opportunity we have over the next few years. Okay, Christopher, you can turn off the recorder. Does anybody have any other questions? Any other questions? All right, so if anybody else doesn't have any questions, I encourage you to sign up for the next webinar. Next webinar is in August. I believe we have a new presenter. She's going to speak about building a brand in retail, both online and offline. And I think it's a great opportunity to learn. And I know that every single one of you will benefit from that. For a sign up for that webinar, have a great afternoon. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining me this afternoon.